What happens when a game is being developed for a home console but never releases, restarts development on another console, releases on yet another console, becomes universally beloved, sells like hotcakes and gets released on 10 different consoles? You get Rayman 1. Yeah! But the thing about Rayman 1's 10 console releases is that it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the number of times Rayman was released under various different names, leading to some of the most confusing naming you will ever see in a video game franchise. Anyway, knowing my luck, I'm sure the game is going to get ported once again before I get this video out, rendering it outdated. So we don't have a lot of time, let's get on with it and let's go. Rayman is a 2D platformer video game developed by Ubisoft and Michel Ancel, who was obviously working for Ubisoft, otherwise it wouldn't have been developed by Ubisoft. It released in September 1995. Now there are different reports of different versions in different regions, all having different exact release dates. It is true that they all had varying release dates, such as Europe and North America having the PS1 ports a week or two apart, but there is also a lot of fluctuation as to what the real release dates are for each respective version, even going as far as there being different reports as to which came first between the PS1 and Atari Jaguar versions. It's very possible that this is just a byproduct of the different regions with a handful of confusion sprinkled in for good measure. However, when the release dates are so close that they could be confused, it is safe to say they were developed together and will have had no changes made based on the reception or consumer feedback of each other. So I'm not really going to delve into exact release dates as they hold very little weight in the discussions here and they don't really have any significance. If you care that much about the exact dates that it ruins the video for you, you can go away. Anyway, the game released on Sony's PlayStation 1 and Atari Jaguar in 1995 in September. A good starting place to discuss the differences is the PS1 version. It seems to be the most general, if that's the right word. It's very easy to compare other versions to this one, basically. Call it the base game, the vanilla version. The game follows Rayman, who has to defend the world against Mr. Dark, who's been capturing Electoons and putting them in cages. Also Tarzan is there. And some fairies. You gain powers, you break some cages, you fight mosquitoes. This game has it all! There are regular platforming levels, there are flying sections, insanely hard boss fights, and more flying levels. It's a good example of a platformer done right. Very pretty designs, a host of crazy characters and villains with different abilities, power-ups, different worlds, each with their own theming, bosses, gimmicks and levels. It is excellent. I finished the game only twice. I've got many copies of it and I do really like it, but the difficulty spike after Bandland and the requirement of 100%ing the levels before unlocking the final boss fight just mean I usually give up about halfway through. Though the Jaguar version of the game is quite different to the PS1 port, which is interesting as they were released at the same time. It's like if a new Crash Bandicoot game came out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and the versions were just different. Bar small performance issues, you wouldn't really expect any major differences between releases like this. But here we are. So the Jaguar version is host to some interesting changes. There are small things like the odd level having a different name, namely the Swamps of Forgetfulness and Mr. Dark's Dare being named Forgotten Swamps and Mr. Dark's Chateau respectively. The soundtrack on this version is also of a lower quality. This is because of hardware and cartridge limitations. The music arrangement is different though, some sound effects are missing, there are even different tracks unique to the Jaguar port. The intro cutscene is gutted and replaced with a slideshow. Various effects and backgrounds are missing or different to accommodate the hardware. There are gameplay features not present, such as throwing Rayman's fist while hanging, sliding on the frying pan, or even parts of the final boss fight. There are, however, additional gameplay elements, such as the mosquito being able to shoot while riding it, a feature not seen again until Rayman Origins. While I myself have not played the Jaguar version, it is considered by many a much easier way to play Rayman than the PS1 version. While often considered not as good, and it is theoretically lacking features, details and physics systems like when flying, it is generally regarded as a lot easier. This is by no means a definitive rundown of every single difference between every single pixel in every version of Rayman 1. However, there is a bloody good video by Pimpu? I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. From 2024 that runs down why the Jaguar version is the best version. I know that's a very hotly contested debated argument whether that version's good or not. I think it is. But yeah, go and check that video out. It's linked in the description. It covers a lot more granularly some of the differences that make the Jaguar version better. I may one day make a video getting a bit more granular into it, but Rayman 1 is not my favourite Rayman game. Rayman 2 is. I've got the video in the works. The script is currently the length of a short novel. I wrote it in 2023. It's going to be a while. Just move on. Along with graphical differences, a change in sounds, major level design changes and missing features, it is safe to say there are a fair few differences between the first two editions of Rayman. But what about the other ones? Well, a month later in October 1995, there was a version released for the Sega Saturn, which is incredibly similar to the PS1 version. Not without its changes, the Sega Saturn version could be described as basically the same. There are primarily just graphical alterations in this version, making little impact on the gameplay itself, but people would generally consider this to be a better port than the PS1 one. That said, the PS1 port sold a lot better and is probably the console most people associate Rayman 1 with. It was the best-selling PS1 game in the United Kingdom, by the way. Next we have the PC version, or MS-DOS as it was back then. This released a little while later in April of 1996 and is mostly quite similar to the PS1 and Sega Saturn versions. It's the first version I played, and since moving on to the PS1 edition since, I've not noticed any huge differences. Which is what I would say if I didn't do my research, because apparently when I play things I'm completely oblivious to massive raging obvious differences. The PC port of Rayman 1 has parts of levels remade or reshaped, oftentimes using new assets. There is voice acting for some of the characters.
Hey Rayman! Take this magic seed!
Half of the music is missing, the intro cutscene had been nuked, the cages, lives and things are all in new places, and you... Oh no, wait, actually that might be it. I think that's everything. The ability to play the game with a keyboard may or may not have affected the difficulty of the game depending on how you're most comfortable playing it, but technically that is a difference. You don't have to have a controller, or if you're playing a different one, you don't have to use a keyboard. So we have 4 main editions of Rayman all released within a year of each other. Each version has their own differences, but are fundamentally all the same game with the same premise and the same idea of punishing the player just for trying to play it. But if you think it stops there, you are sorely mistaken. Sometime in 1997, a new game was released on PC called Rayman Designer, which does what it says on the tin. With Rayman Designer, you could create your own levels with Rayman's assets. You could even, for a while, download other levels created by users and play them. On top of that, Ubisoft shipped the game with 24 new levels designed by them to be played as a sort of expansion to Rayman. These new levels involve collecting all of the blue tings in order to make the exit sign appear, rather than freeing cages of Electoons, because narratively, you don't need to do that anymore. These are harder, I tried them, I didn't complete them, I came nowhere close, and now I'm moving on. Later that year, still in 1997, Rayman Gold was released for PC, which was simply Rayman Designer with the original Rayman 1 included. This was actually my first ever version of Rayman 1. It's incredibly hard to get running on modern computers, and it was even tricky to do it when it came out. There are patches, but there are also many other ways to play Rayman 1 on PC and have a better experience, such as Rayman Forever. Released in 1998 for PC, Rayman Forever is a pack that includes Rayman 1, Rayman Designer, and a pack of 40 fan-made levels chosen by Ubisoft called Rayman by his fans, which was available as a separate pack for a short while, allegedly. Good luck trying to get that on its own these days though. Rayman Forever, not to be confused with Rayman 2 Forever, a Game Boy Color game that bears no relation to this, because obviously not. It's the easiest way to find, buy and play Rayman 1 on PC these days. It's available on GOG.com and Ubisoft Connect, and both have made it very compatible on modern systems. It's worth noting right now this is not sponsored. I don't know why I told you where you can buy it. I'm not being paid for this. Well, speaking of, why don't you become a channel member? Then I will. Hooray. So then we have Rayman Collector. Rayman Collector is a bundle released in 1999 only in France and Germany, and it contains Rayman, Rayman Designer, Rayman by his fans, 3 new minigames unique to this edition, and a newly released Rayman 60 levels, which was a pack of new levels made by Ubisoft. These 60 new levels were only available in bundles like Rayman Collector, except for one bizarre case where they were released as a standalone in Germany. Titled Rayman Forever, I don't know why. And then there's Rayman 100 levels, which came out in 1999 in the Netherlands in English with Dutch packaging and manuals, and it contained just Rayman by his fans and Rayman 60 levels, so they're not actually new, despite explicitly mentioning that it contained the 3 new minigames and a making-of special for Rayman 2 on the box art. There's a French port of this, in French, and it includes all the features that the Dutch box art claimed to have, so that's something. It's already getting weird, but we have reached the end of the Rayman 1 PC ports. Okay, if this wasn't convoluted enough, let's look at the handheld versions of Rayman 1 because, there are so many. First up, in the ripe old year of 2000, we have Rayman on the Game Boy Color. I would like to point out that a year prior, Rayman 2 had come out, but that wasn't going to stop Ubisoft. Anyway, Rayman on the Game Boy Color is sort of exactly what you'd expect. The hardware limitations make it very different from the Rayman we know. Its colour palette is heavily reduced, as is the music and the sound, level designs are changed to be a lot smaller, the whole game is a lot smaller in fact, and most of the characters are omitted as well as boss fights, except the final one, but even then it's very different. The story is mostly the same, but heavily stripped down. The idea remains though, you collect things, make your way to the end of a level, rinse and repeat. Bizarrely enough though, on the box art, Rayman has his Rayman 2 appearance. And in the game, and in the cutscenes, and the music is based on Rayman 2's music. But it's still Rayman 1's story and gameplay, mostly. There was a port of this on Palm OS and Pocket PC a year later with no huge differences, just a little bit of quality of life stuff. Then a Symbian OS port in 2002. They were really pushing Rayman 1 for a while, even going as far as making, I assume from the ground up, an entirely new handheld game, and then porting that version of Rayman 1 to other handheld systems. This game, like a lot of Game Boy Color games, made it to the Nintendo 3DS via Virtual Console in 2012. Very strange game, but nice to see that it was still getting attention as far as 2012. I mean, obviously it stopped there, it's an obscure Game Boy Color game. I'm sure that's the last we're going to see of that one. This is what we in the industry call subtle foreshadowing. After this, in 2001, as a launch title for the Game Boy Advance, Rayman was released under the name Rayman Advance, once again featuring a Rayman 2 render on the box art. This time though, it's the correct game. This port is very similar to the PC one, with some notable differences. For example, the opening of Bongo Hills has been omitted, likely due to hardware issues. The cutscenes are once again slideshows, like the Jaguar version, with the music and sound taking a hit too due to the cartridge's limited size. One big difference in the GBA version is that it is remarkably easier. There is an extra health point, more lives to find, more checkpoints, fewer enemies, and lots of little things that just make the game a bit easier, which are then combated by the fact you're playing it on a fucking Game Boy. Like a lot of GBA games, this got released on the Wii U Virtual Console in 2017. Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port? Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port? Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port of the game? Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port of the... Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port of the Game Boy fucking... I can't. Do you remember the Pocket Pussy port of the Game Boy Color version of the game that I mentioned earlier? Well, this is a Pocket PC port of the proper Rayman 1 from 2003, only this is called Rayman Ultimate and you have 20 health points, 10 lives and a fresh soundtrack because, why not? In 2008, the PS1 version of the game was ported directly to PlayStation Portable and PS3 as a downloadable PlayStation Classic, with a version playable on PS Vita down the line. Nothing was changed here from the PS1 version except that it now looks a lot better because it's running on a PS3. Then there's the Nintendo DSi port from 2009. Not a Nintendo DS port, no, this is for the DSi only because it makes great use of the DSi's camera. Every time the checkpoint photographer takes your picture, he literally takes your picture and you cannot stop that camera noise. It's awful. Otherwise this version is like the PC port, only a bit easier, but not as easy as the Pocket Pussy port, on paper. I mean, obviously you're playing it on a DS, so the fact you have extra health is more just there to curb the additional difficulty you get from having to play it on a fucking DS. Either way, it's intact, and personally I think it's a great way to play the game. I have it, I like it. It also made its way to the 3DS in 2011. In February of 2016, an iOS and Android port of Rayman 1 called Rayman Classic was released. It was almost identical to the PC port, but with a few glitches here and there and added achievements. The biggest difference is that the controls are now virtual buttons on screen, but as I remember, this had controller support, so you could use a Bluetooth controller with it. But not for long though, because it was removed in the summer of 2018, and to this day you are unable to acquire Rayman Classic unless you already had it or you've got an old phone and have no problem, jailbreaking it and like getting hacked and shit. And finally, the latest release of Rayman 1 to date. No, hang on. Sorry, I wrote this video a long time ago. And now penultimately, the second most recent port of Rayman 1 to date. Rayman was one of the 20 games featured on the PlayStation Classic console from December 2018. Oh my god, that thing's 8 years old. Wow, that trips me out. Anyway, this version is identical to the original PS1 version. While it's hard to really call it another Rayman re-release as it's part of a classic console, it's still remarkable to see how much attention it's still got throughout the 2010s. But that would end with Rayman 1 not receiving a new port for 7 years until September 2025. The Chromatic console by Mod Retro. It's like a third-party Game Boy that's just a bit better with quality of life improvements. Well, in 2025, the Game Boy Color version of Rayman 1 got a new release on this chromatic device with a brand new updated soundtrack to go with it. Great. So if we count all of the PC releases as one, there are currently 20 platforms you can play Rayman 1 on, which is bonkers. There may be some that are lost to time, or that I somehow missed, or that were exclusive to a country and I just simply didn't come across it when doing my research, but I mean, it's still already a hell of a lot. Rayman 1 is a popular game. I mean, like I said, it was the best-selling PS1 game in all of the United Kingdom, and I think Ubisoft knew that with how much they wanted to port it. So, releasing a sequel in 1999 called Rayman 2, and porting that to about 1 million possible platforms was a no-brainer for Ubisoft. But that is a movie-length video for another day. And until then, thanks for watching. Go play Rayman 1. Don't forget to become a channel member and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.